Hi everyone, my name is Angela Hart and I'm currently a graduate student at Georgetown University. For the last year and a half, my studies have predominantly been on television and film in regards to journalistic practices such as satirical news programs and political film adaptations. Prior to attending Georgetown, for my undergraduate degree, I studied literary texts adapted for film and new media. For my undergraduate thesis, I tied all my research together and analyzed the Lizzie Bennet Diaries on YouTube. As an undergraduate, my studies pertained to Shakespeare on film, Jane Austen on film, making documentaries, screenwriting, and a variety of media and production classes. I've also done a lot of research on screenwriting, having taken a lot of classes myself, and I've also done a lot of research reading every book on Amazon, a lot of different podcasts, so I'm very well versed in how people adapt and formulate their thoughts for film. There are a number of ways to approach analyzing and breaking down a film. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the practices and principles that I utilize when I'm analyzing films. While it might sound easy breaking things down scene by scene, it is not. I can guarantee that it's going to require a lot of time on the researcher's behalf. Personally, for my thesis project, I've watched the film probably 40 to 50 times. Granted, I held focus groups, so during those meetings I watched the film an additional 7 to 8 times, but I also watched it for my own studies, having viewed it to determine which film I would select, and then I would analyze it for all different elements across the board. So I would watch it one time just timing how long each character was on film. In another instance, I was citing all of the wardrobe selections. For a different viewing, I noted all of the different background elements. So it was very important for me to watch it with a specific purpose. If you are interested in conducting a film analysis, it's very important to watch it through a particular lens. After a certain point, it became very difficult for me to focus beyond the dialogue because I had seen the film so often. So to mix it up and make it easier on myself, I actually muted the dialogue so I was able to just focus on the details rather than who was saying what line and how it was being delivered. That allowed me to clear my head and focus on particular elements within that scene. For my particular study, I noted all of the different times that the film used television sets and how often they were incorporating authentic news footage. And so every time I would see a little CNN logo, I would make a notation. And so for that particular viewing, all I did was just make notations every time I saw a news logo or every time I saw an inclusion of footage. For that viewing, I wasn't going to mention any other mise-en-scene elements, the dictation, the camera shots, nothing. I was just focusing on that particular part of my study. Watching film for entertainment purposes is very different than analyzing it for an academic paper. When you go to watch a film, you want to be engrossed in the story and follow the narrative and become emotionally invested. When you're analyzing a film, you have to be more critical and view it through a particular lens. If you are analyzing a film, you are no longer just a viewer, you are a scholar. A viewer's job is to simply enjoy the film. A scholar's job is to analyze it and determine what impacts certain decisions, from the production to the actors and how that affects the audience, or whatever your particular project pertains to. It's very important to note that you are analyzing the film and not just viewing it. Those are two very different experiences, and it's important people realize that when they're doing academic research. If you are brand new to film studies, it's very important that you learn all of the definitions involved. If you don't know what mise-en-scene is or the difference between a scene versus a shot, you need to learn those prior to analyzing the film. For a point of reference, mise-en-scene is anything involved with a particular shot. Everything is placed in a film with purpose or reason. If a character has a very lavish office with an exquisite bookcase and leather-bound volumes, chances are they're very wealthy and they're trying to convey that to the viewer. What the character is wearing is also part of the mise-en-scene because it's costuming. Everything is selected with intent. Also, a film shot is an uninterrupted period of time. So if a character is talking about a specific topic, the camera might stay with him until he finishes his thought. And then if character B starts talking, the camera might jump to them. And so as long as that person's talking, the camera remains on them, that is a single shot. Whether the person moves towards the camera or makes any sort of motion, that's within the shot itself. However, the two characters might be talking to one another in the same scene. As a film studies academic, it's important to note all of the different ways that these terms are utilized. If you are going to be analyzing a film, it's important to know them beforehand rather than try and learn as you go. It will be more difficult to note all of the important elements as you go if you're trying to balance learning and studying in one. Personally, I would advise that you take a film that you're somewhat familiar with, you've seen it a few times, and watch that from beginning to end with your film studies definitions in front of you. That way you have a point of reference, and if you look down at your notes, you're not going to be missing something important, or you can fill in the blanks because you already know the ending, or what that character is trying to achieve in that moment. Personally, when I first started studying films, I used a lot of movies that I had been watching since I was a little kid. This might sound a little odd, but watching animation films for me was really helpful. When you're watching a cartoon, whether it be The Incredibles or Big Hero 6, people had to take the time to draw in every detail. If you're watching an actor portrayal or an independent film, sometimes you might be left curious about certain mise-en-scene elements. At least in my experiences, when I was viewing a low-budget film, they made reference to the fact that they had to use whatever location they could come by. It was harder for me to determine the background implications because if they just happened to fall into that location, they weren't really put there with the specific purpose. Or I was having difficulty distinguishing what was there by necessity because they needed that location and what was added for the film. When you're watching a cartoon, however, people had to take the time to draw in every single detail, so you know for a fact everything is there with purpose. You cannot brush off any of the details. You can look in the background and actually analyze and say, someone drew this because ... It might sound obvious, but you need to be aware of the fact there's a difference between taking the time to draw something and just happening to fall into a great location. That was really helpful for me when I was first learning because it allowed me to determine what things meant versus why they were selected. Personally, it's very hard for me to dissect a film I really enjoy. If it's one of my favorite films, I don't want to put it through that critical analytical lens. I want to be able to enjoy it as the viewer. And so for my studies, I try and choose films that I enjoy, but I'm not overly fond of to the point where I'll be upset if I realize something negative about it. I try and choose things that will keep me interested and have enough depth to keep my project ongoing, but yet I don't want to ruin something that I really, really love. While it might sound easier to select a film that you don't like to analyze, I don't recommend that because you are going to watch it multiple times. If you didn't enjoy watching it the first time, chances are the film is going to become a burden the longer your study goes on. On a scale of 1 to 10, I recommend that you choose a film that's about a 5 to an 8 for you. If it's below a 5 and you don't enjoy this film at all, don't select it because too much time is going to be invested in watching it and critiquing it. If you don't enjoy the film, chances are it's going to be more difficult for you to finish your project. If you have any questions about film studies in general or projects I have done over the years, I would love to talk to you more about it, so please give this video a thumbs up and I will keep talking about film studies in the future, or comment down below so that I know what you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.